we can skip over the flasks and trinkets as we did cover that very well. So moving into skills, I realized I had many pages of questions here, and then I was like, wait, we haven't even talked about skills here. so much for us to discover over the course of this beta. How has the list of skills been shaping up overall?
I mean, it's certainly getting there. I mean, look, there are even certain skills that won't even make it, even just within the classes we have. Like, there are still going to be some more skills coming later on as well for these classes, because there are more skills that we got just about there and didn't quite make it. And getting a class finished in terms of the skills you need, it sort of seems very easy when you come with, okay, we need 22, 23, 24, number of skills, something like that. And it seems like that's not so many and you kind of design them. But when you actually come up with all of the things, the way they interact together, the number of prototypes you have to do that kind of don't really work, and you end up not being fun. And then, of course, the support gem stuff, you need to make sure that every skill has enough viable supports that you can actually even recommend people to be able to do. Then you need things like the passive tree support for all of them. You need to have all of the stuff with the buff gems for each character class as well. You need to be thinking about uniques for the type of that can work with these things. It's just there's so many different elements to actually make skills work, and once again, it's another area I think that was underestimated to some degree before, and it does take to actually get that finished, it takes a lot. That's been a total struggle, and we didn't think we would have to have only 6 character classes initially at the start of early access. We were thinking we would have 8 to begin with. But when it actually came down to actually getting to actually finish something, it just ended up being too much. Now obviously we've got a bunch of work on more of the classes that we've done. There's things there, but it's that finishing work of making sure that all the systems in the game come together to support, how that works.
Well,
that requires a lot.
Doing all of that as we're still discovering how we want those systems to work. The changes to support gems and all that. As we're also making support gems, as we're making character classes, just can cause things to slow down quite a bit, and then we have to recalibrate and all. It was an extreme amount of work that we certainly predicted poorly, but that was also because we are making all these cool systems to all these changes to all these systems, which are having immense benefits as well. So,
for sure.
I would say it's pretty safe to expect that as much as you can't play them on day 0, some of those other classes that we have shown in the past, and some of the skills and stuff, there's a lot there, just not to make it seem like it's shallow or anything, but we will be adding those classes in for sure.
Yeah, the thing that keeps surprising me is, when you click that All Gems tab when you're doing an uncut, there's quite a lot of skills in there, but you initially kind of box yourself away where you think, okay, so I'm playing the mercenary, so I'm just looking at the crossbow skills. And then I was like, well, what if I go look at the elemental skills? And then I find flame wall, and I'm like, I can shoot my projectiles through that. Okay, cool. I like that, but that's surface level, because you also have the weapon swap thing, and that you can actually viably do with the automated weapon swapping. It's not toxic where you have to push the button a bunch of times, and you've got the trees that customize whenever you do it automatically on the fly. So that's all of a sudden I'm like, oh well, why can't I use a sword? On the other hand,
you absolutely
that's actually a very cool mercenary vibe, sword and crossbow.
So that stuff is crazy. I mean, in the actually there was one in the community guys recorded where they were using a bell, the bell skill with the quarterstaff.
Sick.
With the rapid shot mercenary skill. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's like a whole other thing. That I didn't even know about that particular combo until I saw it in the some of the footage they recorded.
I started thinking about that too with multiplayer. I was like, so I was throwing my gas grenades. Which you can blow up with your explosive grenades. But then I was throwing it at a boss that was doing burning ground, and they were blowing up instantly. I'm like, oh wait, so it reacts to the environment. Well, it's obviously going to react to my friends doing burning ground then.
So
and my flame wall friend.
And this is the reason. This conversation here is the reason why there's going to be crazy builds that we don't anticipate, because some of the stuff that can happen between classes, I just have no doubt we will not have discovered.
How much co-op have you really been able to test?
We do test party play all the time. Mark's
but to find all those,
I'm the support character player. Now I'm freezing, armor breaking, putting down clouds, slow. I'm like, holy, there's just a lot going on all of a sudden. I'm not just standing there I got buffs coming out of me. It's you're I'm actually doing all this active support and like different conditions to synergize with the group, and how it's like, oh, okay, you're doing that skill. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this and enhance my armor breaking and go ballistic armor breaking, and you just spam your thing that consumes it. You know, so you get a lot of that stuff going on for sure. Where but you know, it's kind of honestly the terrifying part as well, where it's like, you know, what do we have? We had the whole like vulnerability curse with gas cloud ticks or something, and it was like literally applying armor break like every frame, and so you have the monsters going tink tink tink
And then
tink
you
tink
have
tink.
armor explosion on there as well.
Yeah, and then you have
probably.
some other thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you have some other guy consuming it, and again, oh my god, Quill Rain! Just don't even how many bloody synergistic things with Quill Rain.
You can do a lot with that, eh?
All the lightning arrows on the ground, and because they can, you know, lightning things hit them and explode, and all of a sudden now everyone's running around with Quill Rain, spamming lightning rods everywhere, and
Yeah.
and Frostwall. Somehow Frostwall had about 15 abuse cases, and
I mean, that's historically accurate.
yeah, true.
Kinetic blast, frost walls, and all that. It returns. Sounds like it's coming back.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. Even finding all the stuff so far has been really fun. But yeah, I generally play multiplayer. Most of the alpha I've done is being in multiplayer. I play with other people. It's good to get a lot of that testing in there as well, because
support
not
for that, then.
a lot of others do it.
That's really good.
And then yeah, try and see what we can break, just for good fun. Honestly, the thing that's like hard is to then like, because you get this thing which is quite interesting, where you have a staff is both a player and a developer, and I'm of the like, don't you better not keep that you know, something that's I wouldn't say exploit, but you know, something that's OP, a secret, right? You better bloody tell me, because
It's the exact reaction you had earlier.
You were saying people weren't telling you about their good
like you get a
builds.
situation where someone doesn't want to tell you about their build, that's because they're like, oh, Mark will nerf it then. You know,
Like,
that's
you're
it.
supposed to be making game,
Exactly.
not hiding your
I
good builds.
legitimately had a Monday meeting, and you know, whatever.
You're a
And I was like,
developer.
I swear, if I see any of you at the top of the ladder on day one, we're going to have a talk.
Exactly.
I know you've hidden something from me.
Exactly.
No, I did tell you about my flashbangs and how good
But
they
maybe
are.
it's fine. I just wanted them to check. Just
Well, that's the
Don't
thing.
know
No,
if I
that
forget.
is the thing that is hard. No one knows if their thing is actually look, there's a line that gets crossed, yes.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't know. Is it just I've found something cool and it's powerful, or have I found something cool and it's broken? You know, and those things. I mean, we have to make those decisions, of course. And a lot of the time, what is reported is just fine. And it's like, yeah, you got a good weapon, and you got this combo. You're strong.
If it's supported by items, then it's like fine to be very powerful. But if you're just like, I just pick these skills, and no matter what weapons I'm wearing, I'm just like completely ridiculous, then that's a different situation, because now it's just a thing that anyone can do at a moment's notice, rather than actually requiring like, you know, oh, I have to find this combo of items and things like that. So that's a much different story. Yeah.
But no, we've had a lot of good testing, a lot of good feedback, a lot of good people reporting that stuff, especially in the last like month. It's like coming in a lot, because as the systems and everything's kind of stabilizing, you start to get a lot more of that, and people are understanding what the difficulties meant to be and what the power of characters is meant to be. As all of that came and started to stabilize, we got a lot more of this coming in, and we are kind of getting more understanding. But again, you'll never find them all. But you know, it's fun, good fun journey.
Support gems have changed a lot. How have you found the changes to them being now having no levels, and the restriction of having only one support gem on your character of a type, but having a lot more of them?
I really like how this works. Like, I think that it adds so much more build diversity and interest to have to be making the decision of like, you know, where is this going to go? And the thing that's been important though with that system is it requires a lot more support gems to exist, because you only have one on your character. You need tons of them, and like you need a lot of different ways to increase damage and a lot of ways to support different mechanics. It's like if you're going to have something like freeze, like, you know, if you're going to have a freezing skill, you need to be able to support that and augment that in like many different ways. And there needs to be more options than what you can even like. There needs to be, in order to have choice, you can't just have here's your 5 freeze things and that's all you do, right? There has to be more than that in order to be able to have it so you actually have some choices as well. So that kind of stuff has meant that you just need a lot of things going on there. But I think that the choices that you end up with as a player of like, you know, where do I put my model projectiles? Where do I put my PS? Where do I put, like, I think that leads to a lot more interesting decisions with how you build. And you know, like, I think that to me is where a lot of why it just works so much better. And we were certainly hesitant about the whole, you know, you can only have one support per character thing, because it sounds bad if you just hear about it as a player without actually playing it. Like your first reaction is you just hear that and you're like, oh, it's just a restriction. And it is arbitrary in some sense, right? There's no like we can't justify it thematically, really. It just is what it is, and so that, I really don't like that kind of thing usually, because I want the theme to match the mechanic as much as possible. But in this case, it just made the gameplay so much better that like it just had to happen. So it was
arguably, if you need to, like, if you end up in a situation where you like, I have to put the support on every slot.
Exactly, that is less choice, and that's the reason why the gameplay is
less
bad.
choice, less interest, and also you may as well just bake that now into the skills and or
100%. And so this is the thing: it is actually much worse to have that, because it results in this outcome. But like, that's a kind of more subtle argument that like you have to kind of make to people if you want to kind of convince them that this is actually the right way. Because when you tell people, oh, there's this restriction, it doesn't sound like what they're getting out of that is more choice. It sounds like they're getting less. But the reality is, it is actually more choice, because you no longer have like mandatory, like here's the 5 mandatory things you have to put on the skill. It's like there's actually much more going on.
I think it's much better helped realize my experience on the Mercenary, that your vision of having like all of these skills available to you and them actually being worth using.
For sure.
Because if you had all the same support gems, I feel like you just pick the one that does the most damage and you make it do the most damage, and that's the only skill you use.
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing is now it's completely reasonable to have a skill in your character that you just use occasionally, right? Like every 5 minutes you might have a situation where you need to use that, and that's actually fine and completely reasonable.
Yeah, so I'm playing a Grenader, and I would be like, okay, I should only use this grenade normally, is what I would be like in Path of Exile, because this is the best grenade, or maybe this one that does like interacts with it in some way, the obvious combo. But now I'm actually like, well, there's a reason I could use those lightning ones to apply shock, because I have all these shock support gems that I'm not using anywhere else, because I'm using the damage and the LMP on my big damage dealers. I can put the shock things on there, and I can actually have a shock setup. I can incorporate that into my build.
100%.
I can incorporate poison into my build to strip their armor and whatnot. And that
maybe you only use that occasionally when you face something that's got heavy armor, you know? But it's like, you know, it's like that kind of stuff I really want to be viable. And that situational stuff, I think, just makes the game way more interesting.
It's really feeding into the flavor of the Mercenary, as like this like prepared kind of fighter who has all these tools at their disposal as well. Like, you're like, oh, I have this grenade for if I get into this situation, and this grenade for this one. It's so good.
Yeah, nice.
I love it. I've a couple of questions here. People definitely have been asking about like Vile skills and transfigured gems and stuff and like that. I feel like this sort of thing doesn't make sense at launch exactly.
Yeah, because ultimately, if we were going to add something like that, it would make sense to add it just as another skill. So at this point, there's no real reason to do that. Like, that kind of stuff comes in when we want to have a specific reward system somewhere that wants to be able to do that, and so we don't really need to do it right now. But look, we might decide to bring that theme back, and in a reward system later.
I think
like that.
for Vile skills especially, it's a cool flavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
but I think the transfigured thing is also interesting. Like, if you're looking to be able to, like, the reason why transfigured was nice is because it's like we got to sort of iterate on a bunch of different themes around the same skill, which obviously at this point we don't need to do that, because we're already just having to make, still adding the skills. You know what I mean? So all the iterations of it are like less of a necessary thing. But I mean, I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff like that in the future. Like, we absolutely will be.
Do you know how many skills roughly you have / are going to end up with?
I actually don't know the number off the top of my head, but what I will say is that we initially, I think, when we announced like what the full game would have, we said 240. I'm pretty sure we're actually nearing that. I feel
definitely it's going to be way higher than that.
Yeah, because I think we're nearing that now when we've only added half the classes. So I think that means that there's going to be a lot more than that.
100 of them or whatever are like some little utility skill or whatever, but there's, even if you discount for those, it's
I know, no, that's a lot.
You got what, like,
because there's 20 to 25 for each of those for each class. So just with 6 of those, I'm terrible at math in my head. But I feel like that's 120. Well, let's say it's just a bit over 110 or something. Like, end up around there, 120, something like that. I think probably 120. Around there, like that. But then you've also got all the buff gems as well, and like each character class has 9 of those. So that then sort of adds up. And so you've already reached probably 200 just by the time you've got to there. And then it doesn't even count things that really are skills, but like are not, you don't get them via a skill gem. So like we're talking about all the ascendancy little skills, and there's like uniques that have little skill things on them.
All staffs, wands, and scepters have a skill
exactly,
baked
right? We're not even counting that, right? Like, because the staffs, wands, and scepters have skills built in.
Yeah.
And then those are like, that's another. How many of those? There's like 20 of those probably.
I mean,
like if you add them all up.
I don't know who remembers all these things.
I know, but there's no one has counted recently. But there's a bunch.
Countless skills.
Ascendancy classes with skills.
True. Tons.
Yeah,
it's tons.
Yeah. And those skills, by the way, ascendancy class skills are fully supportable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild, because I remember you did the thing with default attack where you can support that now.
Yep, you can support default attack, and you can support any skill that comes from something.
That one caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, wow, you can actually link those up.
Yep, it's so that you're going to end up with quite a lot going on there.
I was even surprised when I was like, oh, I can add, additional accuracy to Herald of Ice, and it like provides a buff to my character. I can like add buffs through support gems.
Well, you know why that is though, because those things like heralds are so hard to find like a good set of supports to recommend. Yeah, so we're like, damn, we have to come up with like tons of these now. They're like really difficult.
I like that idea though. You can like create a custom aura.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So yeah, it's that actually means it's actually nice because part of the it means that you get the feeling of having more aura effects on your character without having to have the spam of actual auras that many characters had in POE1. Like you get to kind of have all that stuff as well. So that's been really nice.
Thanks for the invisible aura, MTX. Well, it does remind me though. So with all this is very off topic, but with all the very good teasers you've been doing for like new 3D art for uniques and stuff like that, have you had any thoughts about reworking the skin transfer MTX in some way, making it more permanent?
Honestly, it's not in our thing about stuff we're thinking about. Like it'll work the same way it works for now, at least. But obviously, skin transfer in POE2, there's a lot more cool base art.
Yeah, that's going to make people actually want to use it now.
So you'll probably be using that a lot more.
So yeah, it'd be cool to see something for that in the future potentially.